Hello, everybody. Hello, Kelly. Did you make it
Hi.
back home? Are you
I made
home?
it back home. What all of you who are watching don't know is that I literally did our boot camp yesterday, sitting on the floor at Nancy Levin's house in her living room on the floor with my little backdrop. But now I'm back home because I have power again. So thank you all for just taking me as I was yesterday. A little off brand for me to be behind the eight ball, but out of my control. So good to see you all here. Thank you for joining again. We said this yesterday, but when you come back, that proves to yourself and the universe at large that you're serious about the journey of writing a book. So the fact that you're here means everything. And if you're watching later on the replay, that is just as good. So happy that you are all here with us.
Exactly. And hopefully you learned something new yesterday that you didn't already know. And we're going to try to keep that going today, teach you some new things that you might not have known that can help you along your publishing journey. And we have another special guest speaker that Kelly and I are going to interview as part of today as well, just to give you some insight from people actually doing it out there and what it took for them to get their books written. I think it's always great to get that input from people. So
Definitely.
it's always
Especially people,
helpful.
yeah, who've had the success you want to have. So that's one of the great things about showing up here is you're getting to be with people who've done the thing that you want to do. And we're excited to be able to introduce you to some people you might not have known before. Give you
Exactly.
some
And
insight.
and I know a whole bunch of you guys upgraded to VIP yesterday. Thank you very much for that. And we look forward to seeing you here in the Zoom room. I see tons of people still coming in right now, but
Yes.
it'll be great. And you guys will get the extra hour with us. And welcome to all the other people on YouTube. It's great to have you. We're looking forward to spending the next 3 days with you.
Yes.
So it's
Don't
gonna
forget
be,
that on no matter where you are, you can chat in, you can write in what's going on for you, any aha moments that you have. We love seeing your comments. So please go ahead and make use of the chat either on the if you're in the general audience or if you're in the VIP.
yep, especially like if there's something that's new and you didn't know it, when, oh, I didn't know that, that's good for us to know what we're saying that's helpful.
Yes,
So
that's
we
great.
kind of take a look at all that along the way, and also it's great when you guys re-emphasize points for people that miss them and all that sort of thing. So it's
Yeah,
a great community that we have here for these 4 days. It's not often you can get thousands of writers all together at once. There's not
exactly.
that many out there, so.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
that's another benefit that you have. Hopefully that you guys
Community.
are using the Facebook group for the general audience and the VIP audience. You each have your Facebook groups. Make sure that you're doing that as well. And hopefully some of you went to the expert booths before our talk today. And again, at the end of the first 2 hours, you'll be able to go to the expert booths again. And at the end of the third hour for VIP, you can go to the expert booth. So I know I heard a lot of people were in there learning a lot of things, doing a lot of things. I know Nancy said she was real busy, and I'm
We
assuming that.
were very busy. The KN booth was very busy. It was great. We loved all the questions we got. Yeah.
Good. Yay.
Yeah.
So that's great. All right. So should we get started for today?
Let's jump in. So I am the one doing the PowerPoint today, so please bear with me. I am just going to go over here and share my screen. Here we go. Hopefully this will be, and I know, Curtis, you asked me to share it in a particular way, so give me one sec. Hmm. Let's see if that does it. I hope so. Anyway, I'm doing my best. So we are so happy to be talking to you all today about something that's very important on your journey, which is figuring out where you're going to start. We talked yesterday about how so many people who have been, Hay House authors, bestsellers, et cetera, started off as self-published authors. We're going to explain a little bit more about that today, but also talk about what it means to be traditionally published, meaning if you are published by a big publisher. So we'll just actually dive right into that right here. And you can see there are really two publishing pathways that we're going to talk about. The first one is self-publishing, which is, just for those of you who maybe don't know the definition of self-publishing, it means you're doing it yourself. And you're going to get assistance from someone or some company, as either you're going to be working with someone who's guiding you through the process, or you're actually working at a self-publishing company, that's taken on the rights to your book. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But basically, you'll get certain types of help, and you get to decide how much help you want depending on which of three different self-publishing options you decide to go with. But that's really you doing it. There's no barrier to entry. Nobody has to tell you your book is good enough. Nobody's going to force you to have a big platform or anything. And it's also going to be, there are other benefits, which we'll walk through in just a second. Traditional publishing, just in the biggest sort of level, is that you're going to sell your rights to your book to an established publishing company who will be doing the heavy lifting of the production of the book and the distribution of the book for you. But you're giving them your rights in exchange often for an advance of some sort, meaning some money against the royalties of your sale. And that's, by contrast to self-publishing, there are many barriers to entry into the traditional publishing world. And as we said, and I just said again, it's not oftentimes the very first spot for someone who hasn't really spent a lot of time building a platform yet. But there are, ways you can get in, and we're going to talk to you about all of it here.
Perfect.
Anything you want to say
And
about that?
also that's the big
Yeah.
advantage, like even just saying for all you VIP people, that's your big advantage that you have, is you have a way to possibly self-publish your book before you've even built up your big platform. So
Right, exactly. Okay, I don't think that was working very well, so I'm going to go ahead and go here.
yeah, that's
Um,
better.
yeah, that's better, right? Okay. All right, moving on then. I gotta get myself back here. So who should self-publish? This is just sort of our, thought process on it after many, many years of working with authors who don't yet have a following. So this is something we're going to talk more about later in the week. You maybe heard us mention it yesterday as a platform. And the platform is basically the audience you already have who's ready and waiting for your book. Why this matters to a traditional publisher is that they know they're going to sell enough copies to make back their expense on the book, and then hopefully make money on it because they're a business. If you're going to be able to generate book sales, and having that following is the way that they know that you may or may not be able to generate the book sales. But if you don't yet have one, that's okay. So don't worry about that. Many people use their first book as the platform on which they build that following. So that's why we were saying many of the authors that you look up to today that you thought were, immediately self or traditionally published, actually started off self-published as part of their process of gaining that following.
Yeah, so so one of the things
Please.
that people are asking in the chat, and I think it's good for us to talk about, is what is a following? Like how many people are a following, and it all depends on the size of the publisher and the niche of your audience, really. And that means that like a bigger publisher like Hay House or Random House or HarperCollins or Hachette, or there's five big major publishers, and there's like 10 or 15 that are big enough that the following really matters to them. Like they don't really, and by the following, it's either your direct audience, like you might have a podcast, you might have an Instagram, you might have YouTube, you might have Facebook, you might have TikTok, you might have a big newsletter, you might have a business with a lot of emails or connection to the audience that know you. So it's a way that you can sell your book. That's what the following is. And you need to have a following that you can sell a minimum of 10,000 books in order for one of the top 10 or 15 publishers to really have any interest in publishing your book. And it's for all the reasons Kelly said, is that they need to recover the cost of the book. So they're going to give you an advance against your royalties. that is equal to the size of your following for how many books they think they're going to sell, but they also have to pay everyone that's working on your book, that's doing the covers, that's doing editing. And we're going to talk about all those processes that you go through as a self-published author. And then those are all the things that they do for you as a traditional publisher. So that's kind of how it is. And as Kelly said, like, there's a bunch of authors who started off self-publishing, and like Deepak Chopra or Esther Hicks or Bruce Lipton or
We've got a whole slide coming up that'll talk
yeah,
to you
like
about some of Hay House's biggest
yeah,
authors that
but
did.
those are like there's lots of people that
So
self-publish.
many.
Mel Robbins, like those are so that's the biggest author we have at A House, the biggest author in the world, and she
Right now.
started with self-publishing. So just because you start with self-publishing doesn't mean you stay self-publishing. So I just want to give that context. So a
Yes.
lot of people are worried, oh, if I self-publish, I'll never get anyone to publish my book. It's a negative thing, and it's totally not a negative thing. There's zero negativity.
Someone just wrote, is there stigma with self-publishing?
Right. And
Not,
everyone asks
no.
that us
Yeah.
so every time we've ever done that, people say, "Oh, I heard no one will want my book," and it's all untrue.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
basic.
go ahead. Say what you're
I'm
saying.
just saying, like, so that's why we start with self-publishing is we want you to understand there's many different ways to get your books in. There, we're going to talk. There's book proposals. We saw in the poll, a lot of you want to learn about book proposals and finding an agent, and that's all for traditional publishing.
Yeah.
But for many people, like the majority of books now are self-published rather than traditionally published. Like I think it's something like over 1 million books were self-published last year, and about 80,000 were traditionally published. So more than 10 times as many are self-published than are traditionally published. And it was interesting. I was looking at my notes from when we first did this. When I first did this myself, probably at a live thing, like and it was like in 2011 or something like that, and there were 200,000 self-published books. So it was just starting back then, I mean, to become a big thing, and it's evolved a great deal. So it's really a great opportunity for you to get started. Anyway, there's some
That's right.
background, so you want to pay attention to what we say.
Right. And one thing I do want to say, because it came up in the chat, is that if you are in VIP, you have this amazing opportunity to be seen by the editorial team at Hay House without necessarily having a following. So you do
Right.
not need a following to submit a book proposal within the context of this boot camp. That's what makes it so great, really, because anyone else who's going to get seen by the Hay House editorial team has an agent, has a following, all these things. So just know that you're good. You don't need to worry about it. We do understand. One other thing that just came up in the chat, which I'm surprised about, was someone said that they were querying agents, and that an agent said that they were not interested in you if you had self-published your book. That is so
That is
weird. That
not
is
true.
not the case at all. They might, I don't know. What I can say is if you self-publish your book and you can sell a couple thousand copies of it on your own, agents will be interested in you. They might not be interested immediately after you self-publish it. They want to see that you actually can do something with it, that you have the ambition, you have the understanding, which you're getting here by being here, of what it means to sell books. And then they will be interested in you once you've sort of proven to them that there's an audience for your book. So just know that a lot of the things that people say about it, it's just not true. We're in the industry. We see it all the time. I mentioned yesterday in one of my stories that my first New York Times bestseller was a self-published book that we then took over the rights at Plume, which is a division of Penguin, and made it a New York Times bestseller. That happens all the time. So just know that this is a great first step. It's not, I always say nowadays, I've started saying, it's not your plan B to self-publish. It's your first step. Okay. It's not your plan B. It's your first step.
Yeah,
Okay.
today literally there was an auction that Hay House was part of for two self-published books and a new book, just to say
Yes,
like,
that's
and
right.
so and people
Yeah.
were paying lots of money for them because the self-published books did well and they did it. So it's so not
That's what they're
true.
looking
And
for.
they
They're
have an
looking for it.
agent too. So,
They probably, the agent probably found them. This is the thing,
yeah.
is that when your self-published book is doing well, people start to notice. So just keep that in mind. Okay, we'll talk more about this. Let's keep going here.
Yeah, Ben,
And
one more thing for all you in the chat. Please make sure you do your chat to everyone's. Like
yes,
Teresa, you just did yours to host and panelists. Hello, you just did yours to host and panelists. Spager, you just did yours to host and panelists. We want you to do it to everyone so everyone can see it.
yep.
So look
We wish
at
we
your
could
little
just set
blue
that
thing,
as a
it tells
setting.
you.
I don't know
Yeah.
why it is that Zoom doesn't allow us to set that, but you'll have
Oh,
to
I
set it
know. It's
yourself with
so
the blue
crazy.
drop down menu. Just click the blue drop down. There you go. So Teresa got it. She fixed it. Good job. Okay.
Yay.
So another type of author or another consideration you might have if you to decide whether self-publishing is right for you is that if you want the book out quickly, you will need to self-publish it because publishers are already filling their list now for late 2027 and that or mid to late 2027, and that's for a book that's just come in on proposal or on maybe a full manuscript is ready to go. If you just write your proposal, you need time to write the book, then they need time to edit it with you, then it needs to go into production, and it's just a much longer journey if you're traditionally publishing. So if you want the book out like this year, you will need to self-publish. So if
Yeah.
that matters to you, self-publishing is going to be your friend.
Yeah, we're working like we just presented our books for the fall of 2026. And so
Yeah.
we're only buying books right now for 2027 and 2028. So,
Yeah, there you go. Okay, another reason you might want to self publish is that you're writing what I call the book before the book. Reed and I talk about this. So, in many cases, yesterday you might have noticed, like, oh, wow, I've never even thought about having an ideal reader. I haven't really even thought about who my reader is. I need to write this story. It's my journey. Some of my friends have said that I should write a book, and that's why I'm here. Right? That is 100% legitimate. And it may be that the first book you're writing isn't the book that you're thinking about the reader. You need to be thinking about yourself right now because it's sort of in the pipeline of your writing journey. And it's keeping stuck a book that would come out where you could really be focused on helping a specific reader. Instead, right now, you're in a creative process or you're in a healing process or you're writing something that's more of a legacy book. That is 100% fine. Self-publishing is where you're going to want to go because you will not have probably found an audience for that yet because you haven't even really been thinking about it, which is totally fine. And I can tell you from my experience in working with thousands of authors, writing that book, that's the book before the book, honestly is an even more important step for you often than getting a book published in the world for other people because it's part of your journey that needs to happen. It's the making of you. So do not feel ashamed if you are writing the book before the book. If yesterday you were like racking your brain to imagine who would want to read your book, still write the book. And if you want it in print, you can self-publish it so easily. This is an option that's never been as easy as it is today, as easy, as cost-effective as it is today. So we encourage you to keep going no matter what book you're writing, whether it's for someone else or it's for yourself. Okay. If you want to keep creative control, which I imagine some of the people on this call do, you will need to consider self-publishing because when you sign a contract with a traditional publisher, you are giving them the right to publish that book in the way that they believe it will sell the best. Now, most publishers are not going to fly in the face of your, desire. Like if you hate the cover, that's, they found that they designed for you, they're not going to force it down your throat in most cases. But they do have the right to do that per the contract. They have final say on the cover. They have final say on the title. They have final say on the editing because they have to, because they're making a big investment financially in you and the book. And they cannot trust you, who are not someone who has experience selling books, to choose a cover if the cover that you're choosing is something they know from so much experience is not going to work. So hopefully that makes sense to you. You don't feel resentful about it, but it is something that you want to take into consideration if you really want it to be yours. I mean, Reed, you were talking yesterday about Louise and how
yeah.
she self-published her first book because she
Yeah.
didn't want the big boys to be telling her what to do, right?
Yeah, well, you can heal your. Well, she's self-published the very first one, the Heal Your Body one, just because she didn't even think of it as a book. And then as she got more popular, people were saying, "Hey, you should write a book." And she had even companies coming up to her to talk about writing a book. And then she self-published it because, like you said, she didn't want the big boys, like the big companies, to change the words because she knew, like she didn't even graduate from high school, so she knew that she was worried and self-conscious that people weren't going to like the way she wrote, but she knew that the way she wrote the book was the way that it was going to work best for the people based on all her counseling she was doing and all that sort of thing. So that's the reason why she did it. She was too worried about the editing process and she didn't know enough. Like obviously she never attended a writer's boot camp to learn anything. And to be honest, back in 1984, it was hard to self-publish your book. Like even at when we first started doing these workshops, I always used to talk about how you had to print a whole bunch of books and different things like that. And that's what she had to do. Remember, I said she printed 5,000 books to get started. Well, that is a huge advantage for all of you is that there's print on demand and you don't have to print any up front. They just
Right.
get printed as you order them. And every single one of you have probably ordered a print on demand book that you didn't even know on Amazon because they look so good. You can't tell the difference
Right.
between if it's printed 10,000 at a time or one at a time.
Yes, definitely. And that's new because back when I first started in publishing, you really could tell.
Oh,
And
yeah.
also the access to good cover design and things like that has also increased because Reed, you and I,
Yeah.
oftentimes we can still tell by a cover if the book has been self-published, but I am finding that more and more often I'm quite impressed with the covers that are coming out on self-published books these days because there are resources for you to out there that you can use. So just it's a whole different world now than it was 25, 27 years ago this week when I started in publishing. And it's really to the benefit of the author. Now, someone did say something that I thought was interesting here in the chat. They asked if I'm writing the book, meaning not the book before the book, should I pause that and write a different book to self-publish? The answer is
No.
absolutely no. You need to publish the book that you believe is going to hit the widest audience. Even if you self-publish it, as I said earlier, if you can get it to start selling, a traditional publisher will very likely want to pick it up and take over the rights and publish it for you. So you're not losing anything to start with the book that you know is going to really land with people. The one that's in your heart that you are writing because you want to serve people or you want to entertain them, that's the book to put out there. Unless you know and people know, oh, I am writing the book before the book. I know that already, right? There's another book coming down the line. But if you're working on the book right now, please by all means self-publish it. Or I mean, again, we're going to talk about traditional publishing in just a moment. See if you have the sort of what the list of things that you would need to be able to find a traditional publisher through the traditional channel. Again, the VIPs here in this boot camp, you have a non-traditional entry point. You've got a back door, which is really cool. But anyone who's thinking about going through the front door, we'll talk a little bit about what that takes. It's going to be a different level. And oftentimes, again, if you self-publish first, you will get to the place where suddenly you will be at the place where it makes sense for you to work with a traditional house.
Yeah, definitely. And also for all of you doing fiction, like a very large number of people that do fiction self-publish first. And even they even keep self-publishing some of the fiction people. So it's a great option for nonfiction or fiction.
That's right. Exactly. Okay. And this is a nice one. You get all the financial rewards if you self-publish it. I mean, you may owe a cut to whoever you're using to publish it. There are different models, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But really, you get much more of the financial reward. Somebody actually put in the chat, oh, but if you self-publish, then you have to do all the marketing yourself. We have bad news. Whether you self-publish or you work with a traditional house, the marketing is still the author's job. It is not a case where you just turn over the manuscript and the publisher makes it work. The reason for that is that, as you probably already know, authors are the point of connection between the audience and the book. And the author needs to be willing to be out there talking about the book, really stirring up interest in it, because the publisher doesn't have the same connection directly to readers in this day and age, when most people are finding their books on social media or podcasts or YouTube, that's where people are hearing about things these days. And so the publisher is not going to have that access. You still have to do that legwork. So it's an unfortunate truth that we have to bring up during the boot camp. Don't let it dissuade you. We're going to talk to you about what it means to build that audience and that platform. And it's actually easier and I think more fun than you might think. But it's not really these days such a difference. It's not like you don't have to do marketing if you work with a traditional publisher and you do with a self-publisher. Either way, as an author, you do have to do marketing.
Yep, and the advantage of a traditional publisher basically is they can help, they do all the work of getting it ready, but also they can get it into bookstores. Like you as a self-published author are going to have trouble getting it into bookstores. You're going to be able to get it online on Amazon, on those kind of things, but that's a big advantage. So there are advantages, and we're going to go through it, but
Yep.
I mean, and the publisher will like guide you in the marketing. And like I always say that Hay House is good at marketing for a book publisher. And
Yes.
like 20% of the books will be sold by Hay House and 80% by you. So, and
That's
we're
great.
probably the best at marketing there is in the whole industry. And that's the best it's going to be. So any other publisher, it's going to be less than that. So
That's exactly right. Okay, so then we wanted to show you some of the best-selling authors at Hay House who have self-published first. So if you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, it's like, do you not want to be like Mel Robbins? Do you not want to be like Mindy Pels or like Bruce Lipton or our very own Nancy Levin, right? So these are authors who truly have made a huge difference. They've landed at their dream publisher, but they knew they had to get started and they self-published that first book. So just know there's in fact, of these books, read, ask, and it is given, or at least I know Biology of Belief was the
yeah,
actual self-published
yeah,
book, right?
Biology of Belief's the only one
Okay, that's the only one
of
of this
these.
list.
So
Yeah,
these are their, well, Ben Azadi, we're going to be publishing his self-published book in a little bit, and we published Dr. Mindy's self-published book,
right.
her menopause reset book.
Yep,
But this wasn't self-published. And ask the Sarah books were self-published from Esther and Jerry, which were their fiction books.
yep.
And they had like a law of attraction kind of book that they did. But yeah, and then Mel's was the 5 second rule she self-published. And I'm going to
Which
tell you
then
all
went on
about
to
her.
sell how many
Yeah.
copies?
I'm going to tell you her whole
Yeah,
entire story on
that's right.
day
Later this
4, which
week.
is
That's
so
right.
good for all of you
It's
guys to
such a good
hear.
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what about those of you who should start with traditional publishing? Now, again, I want to say this is you who are in the VIPs, you get to be seen by the Hay House team. So, take this with a grain of salt. This is for if you are going to be doing it entirely on your own. Okay. These are the kind of authors who have a robust audience waiting. So, one question that we've heard a lot, Reed, just now is
Yeah.
okay, how many people do you need to have following you in order to sell 10,000 books? What
Yeah.
would you say? I know what I would say. I'm curious what you would say.
You would probably have to have at least 250,000 people on social media to sell 10,000 books. So
Yeah.
that
And
gives you,
maybe on your email list, maybe like 100.
yeah, I mean, you'd probably have to have more than 100,000 on your email list to sell 10,000 books. It depends on how engaged they are and how much your book ties into exactly why they're there to see you.
That's
So
right.
the numbers are big. Like it's not like, but for you, when you're looking at self-publishing, even if you sell 3 to 5 thousand books, people are going to be interested in.
That's exactly what I was going to say, right? If in the first 2 years of your self-published book, you can sell 3 to 5,000 copies, people will take note. And so also keep in mind that we're talking about people who are pretty far down their journey. You are all just getting started right now. So just remember that it's okay to be at the beginning. You're at the beginning. I mean, not all of you, but many of you are, right? And everyone was at the beginning once. As you always say, Reed, I love you say this, no one was born with a platform. No one,
Right.
right? Everybody was born with 0 followers. And as
Exactly.
time has gone by, they've talked about what it is that they love talking about, which is the topic of their book, or they've written a novel, self-published it, and it started to catch on. People found it on Amazon, and then they started telling their friends about it. So self-publishing is a great way to sort of bridge the gap between where you are now and having the audience that a traditional publisher would be interested in. There are lots of different ways to get there, but we're just sort of giving you the overview right now of
Yeah.
what's the best way to think about it when you're at the beginning of the journey.
And one of the reasons why we're talking about self-publishing is that you don't have to have that big audience to self-publish, and you can use the book to build your audience.
That's right.
And so that's the difference. You're using your book to build your platform. Like all those people we just showed you, they were using their book to build their business and build their audience. And when they were out, some of them like Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden, they were out speaking and they had like 50 people, 100 people, and they would sell them, 50 books in the back of the room to get it going.
Yeah.
And then it builds and builds and builds and so that's the thing you have to remember. I know it sounds intimidating and you're going like, I don't know if I can do it, but honestly, that's what happened. Look at Louise. Like there was no social media when Louise did her book. And like Wayne Dyer, when he started doing his books, like there were no social media and they used to get on the radio shows and they used to, it was a whole different thing, or people would discover it in the bookstore. But nowadays, like 30% of the books are bought in bookstores. So it's harder to get discovered in there and it's hard to get your self-published book in a bookstore. But it's great that you can have it available. So if you're just talking to 10 people, even you can say, get it on Amazon. Everyone knows how to do that, which
Yeah.
is a big advantage, believe me, over 30 years ago before that was possible.
Oh my gosh,
It
so
was a
much.
lot harder back then.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Okay, so again, for traditional, you definitely need that clear, high concept, unique, and saleable hook. What we mean by that is that you need to have an idea that makes even publishers who are looking at dozens of proposals and ideas a day go, huh, that's a really good idea, right? So that is quite a standard to reach. Now, they might be willing to take an idea that's a little bit less interesting if you've already started selling copies of the book, right? So that's again in your favor. If you're like, well, I want to write a kind of general book. I know that that's not what a publisher is going to be looking for. I'm going to self-publish it. And because I know that I believe in myself and I'm going to do the work to get it out there, that I'm going to end up having sold those copies. Great. So then the publisher will take you on because you've proven to them you have the capacity to sell books. And that's just as unfortunately it is the truth. And again, this is one of the things that we always have to tell people at the boot camps that we don't like to tell them because we know they don't like to hear it. But being able to sell books is as important as writing a great book in 2026 when it comes to getting your books in the world. That's just the honest truth of it. So
Yeah.
we all have to gulp and say, okay, let me digest that and see where I want to go from there. Someone else also had asked, like, what if I don't believe in social media? Social media is not the only place that you
No.
can be building your platform. Reed, do you want to talk a little bit about other places people might
Well,
want
no, I
to?
mean, it's not, it's the easiest place to build it, but you can also be speaking. You can be out speaking at companies, speaking at churches, speaking at any audiences that you might want to go to. You can go on TV, you can go in newspapers, you can go on Substack, which I guess you could call some social media, but have your newsletter on your
Yeah,
website, those kind of things. And also like you can, like we were saying, it's not that you have to have the giant audience to start if you decide to self-publish. And the other thing that can help you, and this is less so than it used to be, but like if you have a lot of credentials, you're an MD and you want to write a health book, and they think they can get you on the podcasts and TV and things like that, or you're a professor at a university, or you have some kind of credentials that make publicity easier for you than other people. So,
that's right. That's right. Okay. Here's an important one. If you want to try for a traditional publisher, you need to be ready to treat the book as a small business that you are in charge of. And I say that because I find that a lot of times people, again, think, oh, the publisher is going to take all of that. They're going to manage the marketing. They're going to make sure the book sells. Their job is just to get a great book into the marketplace. They're going to get a high quality book. They're going to give you the editing that you need. They're going to get you a great cover. They're going to make sure that you are sold in to the big, booksellers like Amazon and Barnes and Noble, et cetera. But it's still your job to get the word out, just like you would if you were starting a business. You would have to be getting the word out somehow. So if you're not ready to do that, that's okay. Self-publishing would be the better option for you now. And maybe down the line, you'll start feeling differently about it. That's totally fine. Again, you're just at the beginning, and anything can happen from this point onward. Life is long. I think about Louise. She wrote like 30 books after the age of 60. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like, you got plenty of time, friends, plenty of time for things to happen and for your feelings about things to change. So just keep that in
And
mind.
also for all of you in the chat, like, don't worry about the contest and all that for VIP. We're going to tell you about that later, but none of this has anything to do with that.
Yes, that's exactly right. And the final thing is, again, if you're willing to wait the 18 to 24 months to get your book published, then it might be right for you. If instead you're feeling like, no, I need this for my business. So this is something we get a lot of people that we meet in these boot camps are here because they know that there's a book that will help their business. They want, so like me with the book You Were Born to Write, I wrote that book because I wanted to be able to hand people something that explained who I am and how KN Literary can help them, give them everything they need to know so that they know whether or not we would be a good fit for them. A lot of you will have that same experience with your book, and that's a great reason to publish your book. But you might want to do that now. You're ready for that sort of marketing piece for your business right now. You don't want to wait 2 years for it. So then that would be, again, another really good argument for self-publishing, at least to start. And you can self-publish your book, again, if you are wanting to be a part of the contest. Let's say you're ready to go. You've got your manuscript ready to go and you came to this boot camp because you wanted to learn how to self-publish it, but you also want to enter the contest. No problem. You can self-publish it now and still submit it for the contest. And if Hay House feels like it's the best of the group for them, they will still take it over. So just know publishers actually like it when you self-publish. It's not that they don't like it. They actually really like it. It shows your initiative. It shows your drive. It shows your ambition. It shows your commitment. So just keep in mind. All right. So what are the steps if you do decide you want to self-publish? So the first one, you have to write the book, friends. This doesn't matter what kind of book you're writing, it has to be written. You're going to need to hire editors. I hate to say that because, it's another expense, but truth be told, your book is going to be on the shelf competing for the attention of the same readers as Hay House's books. And Hay House's books are put through 4 to 6 rounds of editing before they get there. So it's just a real honest truth of the industry. Editing is required and editors get paid. So you got to keep that in mind. You need to hire a self-publishing partner. So this might be, just as some of you have been saying in the chat I've seen, going to Amazon and deciding you want to work with what's called KDP, Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. That's great. That's going to be a very low cost to enter, very low. If you go with a publisher like Balboa, you're going to get a package deal of some sort that probably will work in some editing, design, cover design, things like that. That's the publisher you've chosen. At KN Literary, we do the same thing. We've got a higher end sort of package that's a little bit more right for people who know that they're going to be using that book to build their business, for example. And then you've got all these different options in between. We're going to talk about a few of them in just a second. But just so you know, you'll need to figure out which of these different types of publishers do you want to work with and which one is right for you in terms of price point and what they offer you, et cetera. So
Yep, that's a good point. So like we're gonna go through and tell you, but remember we have the expert booths,
yes,
and Balboa Press is in the expert booths. You can talk to them all about this
yes,
and all their packages and what it offers. And the same with KN Literary. If you have a business and
yep,
you really want to have a super professional high-end book,
yep.
you can do that as well. So there's 2 options for you to
Right
all
here.
talk to and get right
But there are
here.
many other options, but the 2 that
Yeah.
are here, we stand behind them. We
Yes.
stand behind them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Then what are your options? So this goes back to what we were just talking about. There are really three different pathways for a self-publisher that you're choosing. The first would be DIY. This is the lowest cost, no question, but also it's the highest, heaviest lift on your part. And I say that because you have to find the cover designer, you have to find the interior designer, you have to find the content editors, the technical editors. It's all on you to find that, right? But then when you publish it, you get the very much the lion's share of the return. It's not an expensive thing to work with Amazon KDP or Ingram Spark. Okay, Ingram Spark is a very well-known industry, sort of company that all the publishers have worked with, all the booksellers have worked with. It's a great company, and you all know Amazon. Okay, these are what we consider our DIY options. Low price point, but you have to do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Next, we have what we call assisted self-publishing. So this is Balboa Press. This is a company called BookBaby is very well known for this. KN Literary has this. This is where you basically are buying upfront a package that will then result in you having a book that's published. It will be available on Amazon. It will hopefully be available via Ingram. It will be available in all the places where books are sold, meaning people can order them. Again, as you said, Reed, very rare for a self-published book that doesn't have traction yet, that's just brand new, to end up on the bookshelves at Barnes and Noble. Like, almost doesn't happen. But down the line, it could if things go well and a traditional publisher picks it up, etc. But basically, they're responsible in this case for helping you get to the place where you have that book in your hand, and you can be off and running to the races and using it to build your platform, build your business. Okay. Again, you're going to pay up front, and then you'll get a return. You'll get money on the back end for every book that you sell.
Yep, and the assisted self-publishing can be less than doing it yourself without any
That's
help
true,
from
actually.
anybody,
Very true.
because there's different ways to do it. I would say like all of them are going to be available on Amazon. If you're going to publish your book, it has to be on Amazon, basically. Otherwise, you may as well not even do it because that's
Exactly.
the biggest place where books are sold everywhere in the world.
That's exactly right.
And so that's the best starting point, no matter where you are in the world. Some countries like Australia have more options for selling books than like the US or the UK or even Europe. But in the most parts, the biggest seller of books in almost every country is Amazon.
Yeah, definitely. People are asking in the chat, like, how can AI help with this? We are going to talk to you all about AI a little bit later in the week, VIPs. So just know that we're going to get to all of that at a point down the line. I put this slide up because I wanted to talk specifically about one of the cool things about working with Balboa. Since they are underneath Hay House, Hay House watches their lists. And if books are performing on the Balboa list, that will get Hay House's attention. And these are two examples. So obviously yesterday we talked to Nancy. She talked to all of you. This was her first book, Jump and Your Life Will Appear, which was selling well enough on Balboa that Hay House decided to pick it up. And then Reed, you want to tell the story of Five Regrets of the Dying?
Sure, I'll just real quick. So
Yeah.
Bronnie Ware is an Australian author, and she used to take care of people who are dying, basically. And as she was talking to them all, she found out there's five regrets that almost all of them had before they passed away, or things that they were thinking about. And she put it all together, and she couldn't find anyone to publish the book in Australia or anywhere else. So she went to Balboa Press to publish the book. And then it came out, and it's a long story, but basically, we saw it being promoted online, basically, and it was in a newspaper in the UK, and we're like, who's this self-published author? And come to find out, she was with Balboa Press. Like, we found her before the sales started happening, but they were about to start happening. And when she was in the hospital having her baby when we called her to give her the publishing deal.
So amazing.
So we published the book, and it became like our biggest selling, the biggest advance we ever got for a book still to this day in Germany. And it's a huge, giant bestseller in Germany.
Hmm.
and it's still selling good all around the world, but it's sold like I think more than 1 million copies in Germany, which is a huge number
Yeah.
um,
And
for
one thing
that.
I want to say about this, because I really think this is important, is that I hope you guys can get the flavor of the top 5 regrets of the dying is an extremely high concept, narrowly tailored, magnetic, unique, and saleable hook. Right? Do you get that? Do you see? That's why it worked because the title said it all. Nobody needed to like read the back cover copy to know what this book was about. So just keep that in mind when you're titling your book, when you're thinking about it specifically for nonfiction. This is less important for fiction. But for nonfiction, boom, you get that. That's what has a book sell that's self-published and has it becomes a phenomenon that a publisher wants to pick it up. I did want to say one thing because I see a lot of comments in the chat about children's books. So children's books, absolutely, you can self-publish a children's book. My dear
Yeah.
friend Miriam Laundry does children's books all day. You can look her up. She's awesome. And I will say that I have a best friend who is a children's book author, just had her second one come out, got a starred PW review, which I'm very excited for her about. And she does not have a platform. She just has a really, really good sense of what little kids want to read and what their parents want them to read. So what she did was she went out on submission and found an agent. That's how
Yeah.
she did it. So just understand there are multiple different ways you can get there. Maybe you start off as if you're a children's book author looking for an agent, and if you get, somebody who's interested, great, then maybe you've got something there. And if not, maybe what you need to do is self-publish it and get the audience cooking before you get the publisher interested. And then it can obviously be picked up by a publisher as well. So did want to just say that for our friends who are writing children's books.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the 3 self-publishing options. I saw people talking about this in the chat. Hybrid publishers. So hybrid publishers are more like a traditional book publisher, meaning they usually have editors on staff, cover designers on staff, sales and marketing people who can help you, etc. The way it goes is that they're throwing in some money and you are throwing in some money. And basically it becomes a profit share. They are different from the DIY and the assisted in that they curate their list, meaning they will not take on just anybody because they are taking a financial risk. Again, they're more likely to want you to show them some sign that you understand marketing, you've got an audience underway or are planning to put one out there, and that they are going to make some money off of book sales. So they're kind of more for someone who's maybe not quite at the place where they're ready for a traditional house, but they do have a following, or they are definitely out there talking to people on social media or newsletters or podcasting or something like that. And these are some examples. She Writes Press, Morgan James, and Amplify are some of the bigger names in the hybrid publishing space these days.
And the majority of the cost you're going to have to pay, like their costs are the more the distribution costs and things like
Yes,
that.
that's
So
right. Exactly. Yep. All right, moving on. So we're continuing our steps to self-publishing. That was the detour of hire a self-publishing partner. The last step is to launch, market, and sell your book. Just that. Just launch it, market it, and sell it. We're going to talk to you more about that in the next couple of days. But again, that's kind of this, very similar. You're going to see that show up here on this list as well. So the steps to traditional publishing is a little bit different. You need to write a book proposal if you're writing nonfiction. So that means if you're writing self-help, personal growth, how-to, cookbook, who knows what you're writing, needs a book proposal. Publishers don't want to see your whole manuscript. They want to see what is considered a business plan for your book. There's a very standard template for it. We're going to walk you VIPs through that because you all have the opportunity to submit a book proposal to Hay House. So we'll walk you through in one of our VIP hours. But if those of you who are in the general audience want to know more about this, I have a whole chapter on it in my book. You can also Google it and see about templates out there on the web. Okay. So write the book proposal.
but one
Now,
thing I will say, you said you don't write the whole book. So for the fiction writers, you do write the whole entire book. So for the nonfiction writers, you do not need to write the whole book. And even if the whole book is done for nonfiction, you still have to do the book proposal. And you can say in there, I have the whole book done, but they don't want the whole book. They
yeah.
just want a couple sample chapters. But for fiction writers, they do want the whole book. So you do need to have the whole book done, until you're an established fiction writer, the
Right.
whole entire book has to be
Which
completed.
is why we say or full manuscript. That's
Yeah,
really for the fiction writers. Okay.
yeah.
So, book proposal, most of you are writing nonfiction, we know from the poll. But if you are writing fiction, even if you're in VIP and you want to submit to the contest, you will need your entire manuscript to submit to the contest. We'll talk more about that in our VIP hour, either tomorrow or Thursday. Okay. Number two, if you want to be with a traditional publisher that is a larger publisher, today it's almost 100% of the time you need to find a literary agent. You can consider them your point of connection into this big, vast space of these big publishers. So, literary agents, they know the publishers, they're friends with the editors. When I was an editor in New York, every day of the week, I was having lunch with a different literary agent because the editors want the agents to send them their best proposals, their best manuscripts. So we take them out to eat every day to try to get them to like fall in love with us and send us what the kind of books we like to publish, right? Because every editor also has their own tastes. And that's one of the reasons why it's good to have an agent. They know who to send your book to, who's going to like it, right? But you have to submit to them first. And this is a whole process in and of itself, which again, we'll talk about in the VIP later this week, but chapter in my book, you can find it elsewhere on the web. There's a lot of information about literary agents. And it is like, you know, if you think, gosh, this is a gauntlet, it is the gauntlet. I'm just going to tell you it's true. You got to do each of these steps in order to get there. But again, each of these steps you learn, more about who you are and what you want and how much you really want this dream of being published by a traditional house. You might also learn, you know what, I think I'm going to self-publish to start, right? Because that's a good, good way. And again, as we said, if you self-publish and your book is selling, literary agents will come find you. They're checking, they're watching to see what's going on because they're always looking for books they believe in that they really can get behind because they don't get paid until you get paid. So they have to deeply believe in your book at a very core level, or else how are they going to actually get paid for all the work that they do for you? So they have to really believe you have that saleable book, or they're not going to take you on. So again, this is another thing you could do is self-publish instead. They'll come find you rather than you going through the process of finding them. But if you do want to traditionally publish, that's the next step. Once you get that agent, the agent will submit it to publishers. Usually the agent will help you get the book proposal in even better shape than it was in, or in a shape that they would like it to be in. It kind of takes a village out here in the publishing world. They need it to be something they feel like they can definitely sell. So they're going to give you input for sure. You submit to publishers. Hopefully you get a contract, land a contract. Maybe you go to auction. Somebody asks, what do you mean auction? Because Reed, you were saying that you were in an auction yesterday. Yeah. That's where multiple publishers all want the same book. And they're fighting for it with dollars. Okay. We hope that you're in an auction. We hope that for you. Okay. Then you'll work with the production team at that traditional publisher. That means the editors, the managing editors, the designers, et cetera, to get the book pulled into shape. And then the book is printed and distributed. And then you have to launch, market, and sell it. It's in the marketplace, but it's still on your plate to do that. All right. This is definitely a bit of an overview here. And I think that that's where we're going to end for the moment. Let's see.
Yeah. And also I'll just say like the point of the whole boot camp is to give you guys a roadmap of everything that's available. Like we have extra hours for you VIP people. We're going to tell you even more about the book proposal, all that, agents, all that. But also we have our memberships where we go way into depth. So we have the Hay House Writers community and the authorpreneur, which we're going to tell you about later also. But that's where we go super in depth into all of this so that you know every single solitary thing. Because here in the VIP, we're seeing zillions of questions in the chat, and I know we're seeing lots in the general. And we can't answer every single one of those. That's the reason we created these memberships that we'll tell you about in a later. But right now we're going to make a pivot and we're going to bring on a special guest. We're going to bring on Nick Ortner, and he created a great company called The Tapping Solution, and he has a great books I see right there on the screen that he's written. And I think Kelly even helped him by editing
We
The
worked
Tapping
together on The
Solution.
Tapping Solution. It was very fun.
And he has a brand new book he's working on too called Rewired. So he might tell you a little bit about that as well as we go through. But welcome, Nick. How you doing?
Good, Reed, Kelly. Thank you for having me. I've been listening for the last 20 minutes. This seems like a lot of work writing these books. Is this,
You would know.
yeah. When you break it down into the steps, it's like, it's almost more overwhelming when you see the whole thing. And I know
Yeah.
you haven't asked me any questions yet, but I know that a lot of people watching and listening can feel that way. And what's interesting about that is I've done all these steps multiple times, but they didn't feel as overwhelming as those 20 minutes. So what I can say to you, and not because I mean it was very clear and everything,
No, no,
but
I totally
what
appreciate
I'm trying to say is all you have to do is put one foot in front of the other, right? Just like what is the next step? And it's good to see the whole roadmap, the whole picture, because then it's gonna, influence your strategy. But people get so hung up on like they'll get hung up right now on marketing the book and they haven't written a single word of the book, right?
Exactly.
So
so
be
true.
aware, marketing's over there. It's going to happen eventually. Have some sort of a plan, but then just put it in a little drawer. Just put it to the side and get going with the book. Anyway, that's what came to me as I
I love
listened and
it.
started.
It's so true. We really are here giving the roadmap, and it is, if you think you have to do it all at once, very challenging to imagine. I oftentimes say that you earn the right to think about publishing and marketing by
Mm,
writing your first draft.
yeah. Yeah.
That's how you earn the right.
It's just so easy to get ahead of ourselves. I remember I was speaking at one of the first seminars I spoke at, and this is when I had launched the DVD. I made a documentary before I ever wrote a book, and it was a lot of steps to get there. And I had the DVD, and we were selling it. And someone came up and asked a question. They said, "Okay, so I have like a meditation thing that I want to do, like a DVD like this or a CD. Where do you get them printed?" I was like, "Well, I just like." And this was 2007. So I looked something up online, dug around, made some calls, found a manufacturer. So I told her a little bit of that. And then I said, "So, and you have this like ready to go? This is why you're asking me?" And she said, "No, I haven't recorded it yet. I want to know about the DVD." And again, another example of what we get stuck, you know, in step number 842. What's step one today?
Amazing.
Exactly. Like, I don't think, Nick, you even heard any of this stuff because, like, we had a little get together in New York of
Yeah.
a bunch of potential young up and coming people. And I don't know, I don't remember like 8 or 10 people, like Louise Hay was
Yeah.
there meeting everybody. And really, they all came to see Louise, but in secret, we were trying to get them all to publish at Hay House, and everyone was telling about how what they were doing, and I said, well, hey Nick, do you want to go to dinner with me? And I don't know, remember if someone else was
It was
there.
Nancy. It was Nancy and Patty. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nancy and Patty, and like, and we're at dinner, and I go, all those other people were great, and there was Gabby Bernstein, and like all of them we ended up publishing at Hay House, I think. But I go, well, out of all those people, you're my favorite one. Like, and how can I get you to write a book? And Nick wasn't even there at all to write a book. He's like, what do you mean?
I mean, it had not even crossed my mind, I had made this documentary film. Even in the film, I'm barely in it. I was putting other experts forward. I really, first couple of years of getting this message out in the world, I was like, hey, I'm a filmmaker. I'm spreading the message, but I'm not the expert. I'm not the guy. And really, I mean, I you to thank for that you said, no, you are the guy. And it's like, what do you mean? But I was like, I was 32 then, maybe 31. So still young, fresh, figuring things out. And you made me a book offer. Patty called with a book offer the next day, and I said, okay, I guess I'm writing a book, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And so kind of take them through the process, like what it took for you to get the book written, because like you said, it's not like you even ever thought of yourself as
Yeah.
a writer, right? So like okay, now you go, okay, like they're going to offer me this money for the book. And the reason, like Nick's a great guy, but also he had a great company, like the tapping solution. They were one of the first, if not the first person to do this big online event that they called the Tapping World Summit. He taught us how to do it. We did the Hay House World Summit for many years. So he had like hundreds of thousands of people coming to his event. And so, like, all of that goes into us saying, you're the man. And he was the man for this thing. But again, like we were talking to you guys yesterday, it's a super niche area. And especially then, now it's like millions of people know about it. But back then, there wasn't that many people. Like, you guys were it, like. So we go to dinner, we talk you into this book, then you go like, oh shit, like what do I have to do to write it? Like, so tell
Yeah.
us just a little bit about it, because everyone here is somewhere in that process of getting one written.
Yeah. And, you said we have a new book coming out. That process doesn't really change, right? Every time that you go to write a new book, whatever the next one is, it's still that process. And, part of it, and I really felt it with this new book that's coming out. You mentioned it's called Rewired. We're really excited about it. It's the first book that I've written in 7 years. Or maybe even 8 or longer. We took a break. We focused on our app. And when people would ask me all the time, when's your next book? When's your next book? I would just say, I don't have anything new to say. Like, I really felt that way. And that has to be like step one for everyone. Do you have something to say? Now, I know that seems silly, right? Because it's like everyone here is like, yes, they're here because they have something to say. But you got to figure that out. And then also, what is it you want to say and why? And, you know, using the word say is like different than writing, right? But I do feel like all these books, they're a statement to the world. So when you sit down to write, you are contributing something to the world. You are saying, you're raising your hand and saying, I want to add to this conversation. And with this last book for 7 years, I didn't feel like I had anything new to say. Now, when I sat back and I looked at all our stories, all our research, all the new science, I could see it's like, oh, okay, this is why it would be different. So this is worthwhile putting the investment in. You don't want to write a book for vanity's sake. You don't want to write it for significance sake. It's going to beat you up. Like, you're going to get a negative review on Amazon. Like, it's not for all the good feelings. You'll get plenty of good feelings, but it's because it has to be, because you have something to say that you feel that has to be shared. So, when you made me the book offer and I said yes, and it's like, okay, what do I have to say? Right. And at that moment in time, I leaned really heavily on my personal stories. And I think that's what, moved you in our conversation, in our dinner. Like, I could just tell you about what I had done with tapping. It's like, this is what I've experienced the last 10 years. This is where I learned it and how I felt. This is how I shared it with this person. This is how I understand it. So it was just getting all of that on paper. And then I actually did, and we did it again with this last book, work for the book. So I identified where we had gaps. It's like, okay, well, I think that people need to know about tapping for X, and I don't have good stories around that. Just hasn't happened naturally. So now I'm going to go and get good stories. And it's not manufacturing stories. It's like, it's sort of like, for me, it's easy. I'll go work with people and, see what happens. I'll interview people. But whatever it is, I mean, if you're writing a book about hiking and you haven't hiked that trail, that is the biggest trail, then you go hike the trail for the book, right? Like, you're just like, this is what I'm missing. So that's, one of the first things I did is just look around and go, okay, what do I want to say? How does this feel complete in some way? How, in the case of the first book, The Tapping Solution, it was just like, how do I give people a tour of what tapping is, make it work for them, make it personal, and then identify, what am I missing? Where are the places where there's gaps in my knowledge and my experience and my stories, and let me go get those.
And did you create an outline before you started, or did you just start writing,
I
or?
created an outline. Probably the best decision I ever made. Maybe you guys talk about this. I know you talk about editors. I hired a book coach. And this book coach, the number one thing that they did is they told me when the next chapter was due. It was like mom, it was just like a parent telling you your homework is due. So we had the outline. We had, okay, this manuscript is due on April 1st. Today is August 15th. Let's work backwards. How many chapters? Breaking it up. Here's the chunk. Like, here we go, step by step. You don't have to hire a book coach. I mean, you need to be accountable, right? So, but it can be a friend. If you're on a low budget and you're like, okay, I don't want to spend any money here for a book coach. I want to have a friend. And that's all you're going to do. You're going to say, break it down into chunks. And then just, they tell you, hey, just so you know, this Friday is when this is due. And that was massive, because otherwise, I mean, this is why you have authors who miss their deadlines, Reed. They don't have book coaches that tell them this is due.
All right, so now, so you used Patty to edit the book. I mean, Kelly to edit the book.
Yep.
So Kelly, when you got the manuscript, how did it look?
It was not like all in disarray. I thought you did a really good job. You had followed an outline. And that's
Yeah.
something that I think is really important. I love that you brought that up, is that having an outline, it prepares whatever it is that you're delivering for your editor. Editors want you to use an outline because then it's not going to be a hot mess when we get it.
Yep.
And really, I think it was more about like transitions between
Yep.
the stories and the content, and maybe some places where I felt like maybe a little bit more content for the reader, etc. But it wasn't a heavy lift. It was actually really fun. I remember it being very fun.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And you know, I've got some memories of that time. What was it? 2013, 2012.
Long time ago.
You know,
Yeah,
we're ages back, but this last process wasn't any different. I mean, what was different about this process is that we had 3 co-authors. So we were just, you know, trying to figure that out with different stories and, you know, decisions to make that are just kind of strategy decisions. Like my voice was the voice throughout because I always personally found it awkward when people would say we or jump back and forth. Like it can be done, but I found it difficult to read. And, you know, and to that end, so much of this, like when you can apply your personal preference to things, like I knew what I wanted to write this time around. And I would write stuff and it would be like, no, I've read this before, you know, like again, back to like, is it new? Is it fresh? So certainly the more you can consume, I mean, our brain works in magical ways. If you read 10 of the best-selling books in this space in the next year, like you read the 4 Agreements, you read Wayne's books, you read Louise's book, you read Joe Dispenza, maybe you read mine if you're so inclined. That is going to download into your brain and you're going to start seeing patterns. You're going to see patterns of like how people structured things. You're going to be able to make choices of like, I mean, the 4 Agreements is this tiny little book, right? But maybe just because how every other book is done, you go to write a 250-page book with all this stuff. But then you read the 4 Agreements and you realize, you know what? My content doesn't need 250 pages. It needs this approach here. So the more you can ingest, let your subconscious mind do that magic work, I think you'll find other avenues to create, you know, what you want in the world.
Yeah, and sometimes those short, like I know Janet Mills who wrote that book,
Yeah.
and it took her like more than a year to write that little tiny
Yeah.
book because, like I think Kelly said yesterday, sometimes it takes longer to write shorter amounts of things, and like I knew her the whole entire time, like as she was writing it, and all the ups and downs of getting Tom
Yeah.
Miguel's stuff out of him and taking all kinds of talks and all that kind of thing. So it definitely can take longer to do a shorter book, but there's no reason to make it long if it doesn't need to be long. So
Yeah, and to really just learn just what's out there and different people's writing styles and pacing, and you know, there's so much to that. And I do think that if anything, you know, in the self-help industry, we can get stuck in a little bit of a formula, and you know, reading outside the space might give you some insights. Reading older books might give you some insights. Go read a self-help book from 1982. See what you find there, right? Like what's there that isn't, you know, what's being put out there today. Because look, at the end of the, I know you guys have said this, at the end of the day, you have this whole process, all these things. If you don't write a good book, it doesn't matter. You know, the best people with the biggest audiences, with the biggest email list, sure, they can get something out there. They can just convince people to buy, you know, the first batch. But it's not going to have any legs if the book isn't good. Because as Reed has said to me a million times, it's all about word of mouth. Like you get, you know, you get the base out there. So that's where the audience and all that work matters. But, you know, it's word of mouth that really makes things go.
yeah,
And I think that was, oh, go ahead, Reed.
no, go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I was going to say that's sort of what we were talking about just now when we were talking about self-publishing, because I really do feel like in a way the cream rises to the top, meaning that no matter whether you self-publish or you publish with a traditional publisher, it's about whether it is impacting people's lives.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we talk a lot about people doing a beta group before they're like teaching it. I was going to ask you this. So what do you feel like the impact of having done the documentary on the book? How would you have, let's just say you had decided to write a book instead.
Sure.
What would have been lost in not having gone through the documentary process?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, that was a perfect trajectory for me because it was the lived experience of, these experts talking about it and these people, and we ended up talking about a lot of these people in the book. So like the subjects of the documentary, John with 30 years of chronic back pain. Well, here's a great story. And by the way, you can go watch it online and watch a movie and see that it's real. So it let us, sort of get our hands dirty in the content. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about go hike that trail, like go live this, like whatever it is, live it, work it, workshop it, go do I remember I did like little tapping workshops at the local yoga studio. I co-owned a yoga studio with my ex-girlfriend, and I would just do little workshops there. It was just like you have to live it. And so the more you can do that, and if you're writing the book and you see the gaps, okay, got to go back to doing some living. Like I got to be out there and really, if you can do it, in person, if you can do it in your community, if you can interact with people, see how they react to how you're talking about things, like that's going to give you the most impact. Online is great, but like it doesn't give you that lived experience.
Okay, so now your book is done and it's time to get people to read the book. So how did you get people to read it? And then how was what happened to you and your business and everything once the book came out?
Yeah. So, landscape has changed. Back then, 2013 was a big affiliate driven environment. So most of our promotions were, other people that we had supported in the past that I'd made relationships with supporting the book, sending out an email about it. And that's really, and obviously to our own email list. We did a bunch of different promotions during that time. We did extra bonuses that you got, especially if you went and bought in the bookstore, because we wanted to get, some in-store sales for the New York Times. That was a goal then to hit, the New York Times list, and in-store sales mattered a lot then. I think they still do now. So we would incentivize our biggest fans and say, hey, if you would do us the favor, because it really was a favor of going to the bookstore and ordering this book or buying it, we'll give you, X bonuses, whether we put together some more tapping meditations for them or, other things that we had done. So we got some great support there. And really at that point, it was about mobilizing the community. I think we had built up a lot of goodwill over the years with our free summits and, everything we had done in the world. We had a charity component to it. I donated royalties from the first 10,000 copies of the book. So I was just like, what can I stack, everything in the direction of moving books. It hit the list, 4 weeks in a row, which was really exciting. Went on the Dr. Raj show, did Today's show, all sorts of, fun stuff and, great reviews on Amazon. I think for the business, it was certainly a moment of like, oh, wow, tapping is it, it's out there. It hit the list. And now 12 years later, I'm trying to do that again, to the next level with this new book. I feel like that was really big in the self-help and self-improvement world. Like it was a known thing. And this next book, Rewired, is like, okay, now we need it to be big, period. So that's our strategy now.
I'm
Yeah,
curious, just do you want to go ahead, Reed?
well, I'm just gonna say, so you made the New York Times, and so having the book gave you and your business tons of credibility, right?
I mean, it's massive, and it's why I'm doing it again, because I see, it's almost like we have the credibility, but I see the gap in terms of that next level of credibility. I wrote the book that I hope is the next level of credibility. So it's like going up that ladder. And it is absolutely massive. I think people undervalue it. I know Reed, you've talked to me about it for a long time. A mistake that people make is that they write a book and then forget about it and then just get on with their business and doing all the other things. And my plan for this next book, because I was guilty of that along the way, because you have either the next book that's coming up or the next summit or the next promotion or the next thing that you have to take care of. I don't plan on writing anything anytime soon, because I would like to, give this one 2, 3, 4, 5 years and be like, okay, this is it. How can I keep focusing on this and not jumping on to the next thing?
Yeah, but I know like the book also, you got to go on tour and speak with Wayne Dyer. I mean,
Oh,
I
well,
went with you to Australia.
I mean, look,
It
that was
opened
just,
some doors up, and Tony
yeah,
Robbins, he might have said, "Hey, Nick, come and give a couple talks for
yeah.
him."
And look, that
Like
was dream
that's
come.
everyone's dream. Like he skips that part. Like, oh yeah, Tony. And if you call up Nick's answering machine, Hugh Jackman answers,
That's true.
for him. but all little side benefits there.
That's true. No, that is all the fun stuff. Do you see that hat back there hanging on the wall? That hat is signed by Hugh Jackman after one of his Broadway plays. And Hugh was actually gracious enough to give me an endorsement for this last book. So the back cover of Rewired has Hugh Jackman on it. Jason Segel on it. You might know from Shrinking. He's on there. And that trip with Wayne. I mean, me in high school in my 20s, like I was an ultra fan. Like Wayne, Louise, Tony, they were just like on repeat on what was then, first a Walkman, and then I upgraded to, like a mini iPod, and it was just nonstop. So being able to spend time with Wayne in Australia, 2 weeks with Reed and Ava and Wayne, my wife Brenna, it was just absolutely unbelievable. Being able to spend time with Louise at all these different conferences, like the I Can Do It conferences, that when they were happening 10 a year, like when I felt like there were mornings I would wake up, and I know it's not that many, but I didn't know what city I was in, because you're just like, oh, like here's the next city. And being backstage with the same people, it was like really, really special time in my life. And you mentioned Tony, who is wrote the foreword to this last book, Rewired, is an investor in the Tapping Solution app, and he came to Sandy Hook and supported our work here. So all those dream come true. And yeah, it's certainly absolutely from, putting pen to paper or typing in my case and getting this book out there.
Mm-hmm. Can I just ask, what are you most excited about with this next book coming out?
I think it's an interesting moment in time for us, because when I wrote the first book, we had a lot of stories about tapping, but we didn't have the science and research and the data. Our app in the last 7 years has collected, we have 32 million completed sessions in it, and 18 million of those have 0 to 10 data on it. So we have at this point the largest data set in the world of 0 to 10 rating on anxiety, sleep, depression. We have a session called Motivate Me to Write inside the app, and I could pull up that data. I'm sure it's been completed many times. So if you're stuck writing, go check that out. So I think it's a special moment in time when I can have a different conversation and potentially go on other podcasts that would have dismissed this as kind of like, oh, this is woo woo. I mean, look, it remains strange to tap on your face and body and get these results, but the data is profound. The mechanisms are profound. So I think everything is coming together in this time to re-excite the people who are interested in it, because that happens too. It's like, okay, now there's a new energy around the book, and I hear time and again from people like, oh my gosh, I used to tap like 5 years ago and I forgot, and it's like it helped me so much then. So I think it'll all come together to hopefully be an exciting book, a big book. Let me have different conversations. Podcasts are huge now, and they weren't then. Like it wasn't a thing. So this will be a lot more about having those conversations, which I enjoy. So I think it's going to be great.
Oh, very exciting.
And it seems like that you're so doing it with your family this time, like
Yeah.
all three of you together. It seems like it'll be like a good bonding situation too for you all.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working together now, my sister and I, since 2007 when we started the movie. Alex joined in 2009 or 10. So I don't know if we can bond further, but yes, it has been great. It's felt really good, when we were thinking about writing the book. I mean, we could have gone in any direction. I could have just had my name on the cover, but that didn't feel right in terms of like what we had done the last, 17 years together on this. So we were most concerned about it not looking awkward on the cover, like a million names, but we got great design and layout, and it looks right. And, those are all the little decisions that you make along the way. And like I said, you face them when you get there. But we're all excited. And now you have three people, giving extra energy to it.
Amazing. And so as an ending to this whole thing, what is your final advice to everybody? What do you think the most important thing for them to know going forward? Like you gave a great start to the whole thing. Let's give them some inspiration for the end.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna plug tapping, because you are going to find moments in time when you're just completely stuck and you're completely overwhelmed, and you don't know what the next step is. And whether it just be simple writer's block, though it's never simple. And like I said, we have a tapping meditation on Motivate Me to Write in the Tapping Solution app, or the bigger stuff. And it's really the bigger stuff that keeps you stuck. It's the fear of success. It's the fear of like, it might not be conscious now. You're excited, but you're going to get to a moment where you're going to go, well, what if the book isn't any good? Or what if I get, I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of new authors in the last decade. And I say to them that your book is a success when you have a 1-star review on Amazon. Because if you don't have a 1-star review, that means not enough people have read it. Like, that's just the way it goes. So, like, root for that 1-star review. Someone's going to be a jerk, It'll either be my favorite when you get the ones that are like delivery was late, on Amazon. You're like, oh, you're reviewing Amazon here, not my book, but that's okay. I'll take it. So you're going to get that, and you're going to face, this is an emotional journey. I mean, it is a healing growth journey to write a book. So whether it be, EFT tapping to the, that's what's happening. Your frontal cortex is offline. You're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you have all this fear. If you can relax, let that go, you're going to bring all your resources back. So, be aware of that as it happens. And then what I started with, which is there's just one next step to take. And it could be as simple as sending an email. It could be writing the first 10 words of your book. Just what's the next step? Look at that, move forward a little bit, and come back day after day. And before you know it, you'll be a published author.
I love it. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank
Great
you, everyone.
to see you.
Thanks, Reed. Thanks,
Everyone,
Kelly.
go get Rewired. You can pre-order it. He just announced
Pre-order it now.
You
Yes.
can reorder it. Yes, we have I think it's rewired.thetappingsolution.com, and there's extra bonuses on there. So rewired.thetappingsolution.com. And thank you for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. Yeah. And we'll talk soon.
Getting lots of hearts. They liked you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Nick. Take care, man.
You too.
Oh, wow. Such good information, so much inspiration. And,
it was awesome.
I think it's very important what he started off with, which was that, yes, this boot camp is boot camp. We are putting you through the paces. We're going to give you all the information, but it's really up to you to decide how much of it you're going to take action on today. You do not have to take action on everything. If you need to take a break, go take a break. But our goal here is to give you just the overview of the whole pathway. And I'm going to be diving in next to the actual writing success tips. So this maybe is a little bit more boots on the ground for most of you where you are right now. It's not getting too far ahead with publishing. It's really about the writing process.
And all you guys in the chat that are putting your email, can you please stop? I have no idea why everyone's putting their email in there, but it's like, I'm just going to turn off the chat if we just
we want to be able to see the questions in the comments. Thank you.
We're done with the emails in the chat.
Okay, great. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and dive into tips for writing success, because this is where most of you are right now. You are mostly at the writing stage. Okay. So this is what I've learned after, and Reed as well, after all the time that we have spent working with authors. These are the most important things that we hear from successful authors. And you're going to hear, funny enough, some of the things that Nick just said is going to be right here. So first and foremost, read the competition. So he just said that, right? Get out there and see what is working in your category. Read the books that inspire you. Know what the top 10 bestsellers are in the category you're writing. And it's very interesting because I oftentimes hear from people, oh, no, I don't want to read that. Number one, I'll feel insecure. I'll suddenly feel like I don't have, anything good to say because it's already been said. Or I'm afraid I'm going to plagiarize. I'm going to accidentally steal someone else's ideas, etc. What I want to say is, if you don't know what your competition is and what other people are reading, the readers you want to be reading your book, if you don't know what they're reading, you will be so far behind when it comes to writing your book. You won't know what you need to say in order to give your book the slight positioning difference that will keep it the reader that bought this book will also want yours. Instead, you might have the same exact book or the same, hook, etc. You also might find that there are certain norms, especially if you're writing fiction. This is so important for you if you're writing fiction, especially if you're writing genre fiction. So we're talking romance, romantasy, fantasy, science fiction. You need to know what the reader of that genre is going to be expecting from you. This is something I hear a lot. Like people are like, you know what? Someday I want to write a romance novel. And I'm like, well, do you read romance novels? Or like, oh no, I don't like romance. Like, well, how do you think you're going to be able to write a great romance novel if you don't read it? Right. So be sure. This is one I hear a lot. I hope I don't hurt anybody's feelings right now. People who are writing a memoir, they're writing their story, and I say, "Oh, do you read memoir?" And they're like, "Oh no, I don't read it at all." And I think, wow, I get it. It's your story and you get to write it how you want, but wouldn't you rather it be informed by the books that are out there selling every single day that are stories of people's lives? As somebody who's a huge memoir reader, I'm like, and you're also missing out on the best genre. I love memoir. But really, it's something that's so important for you to have a full education on what's that bookshelf going to be like when your book lands on it. It's not optional. You must read the competition. So you've got to gear up and say, okay, if I'm afraid I'm going to plagiarize, I'm just going to read so many different people's books that there's no way I could be considered plagiarizing any given one of them. We are all always digesting the books and the wisdom that we are reading and receiving. So there's nothing new under the sun anyway. You are going to be repeating what other people have said. It's lodged in your being at this point, but you're going to put it into words that are your own. You're going to put your story into words that are your own. You don't have to feel insecure that your book has already been written because you have never written a book. And your voice, your story is going to make it completely different than what is already out there. Like, again, I will say there are going to be books that are on your same topic. That just happens. I mean, as Reed and I often say, if you can't find books that are on your same topic, that means that your topic is not a good one. Because if the topic was good, publishers would be scrambling for it, right? So you absolutely are going to find other people who are writing books similar to yours. It doesn't matter that they're out there because your story and your book is not out there yet. And in fact, it proves the point that the book is saleable. So that final quality of a hook we talked about yesterday, saleability. If you can find a book that's got a similar topic to yours that's working, that is actually a feather in your cap as you head out, especially if you're going to talk to agents and publishers. Okay. Anything you want to say about reading the competition, Reed?
No.
Okay. Moving on to most successful authors write most days a week. This one hurts, I'll bet, for some of you out there, right? I will say this because I've been working with authors who want to write a book for years and years now. And I know that many of you are not actually writing. Just going to leave that there for a moment because I know you're out there, right? Some of you are writing, but many of you are not. You're thinking about writing, which is fine. And I do say that, in a way, 80% of writing is thinking. But if you're not actually doing the 20% of sitting your butt down in the chair and getting words on the page, then you can't really call yourself writing. You have to be writing. It doesn't have to be writing for 5 hours a day. In fact, most people are really surprised when they discover that the vast majority of published authors don't write for 5 hours a day. They're writing for an hour or two most days a week. And you don't even have to write for an hour or two. You've got to work up to that muscle, especially if you haven't really been writing that much. Write for 15 minutes a day, most days a week, and see where that gets you. Reed, you often say, like, if you can write 1 page a day, you will have enough content for a book in a year. And you may have even more than that, right? Because you might actually want to, I find that people sit down, write 1 page, they end up writing 2 or 3 pages. Because it's really the hardest part. I said this to some people. I had a retreat this fall, and I said this to the people on the retreat. The hardest job I have is getting you to sit down and open the laptop. That is literally the hardest job. The writing will take over from there once you do that. It's the getting into the seat to do the writing that's hardest. So, go ahead.
I agree. Like I just like if you can say, look, I'm going to write an hour a day or 2 pages a day or 5 pages a day. And then I saw this interview with James Clear on the Mel Robbins podcast, and I thought it was great. And he talks about habits, atomic habits. He's the author of Atomic Habits. Lots of you have heard of that. And he says like to integrate the habit in with something you do daily. Like I write an hour before I get my coffee, or I write an hour after I get my coffee, before I get breakfast or whatever, to
Yep.
incorporate it into your daily routine. But one twist that he said to it in the podcast, that he said, "Oh, I wish I would have put this in the book," and it's a thing that messes up the habits, is people think, my habit is I write 1 hour every day, or I write 10 pages every day, or whatever it is. And he goes, but if you can only write 5 minutes that day, write 5 minutes. Don't use
Right.
like, I don't have the whole hour not to do it. And I
Right.
think that's really good, because I think all of us do like come up with an excuse like, oh, I don't have the time to do it. But all of you have the time to do 5 minutes. Like every single person can do 5 minutes. And your goal is to write for an hour, a half hour, 15 minutes, whatever the goal is, but there's no reason you should miss it. And even I don't like most days a week unless you're doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because most days will end up, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it
Right.
tomorrow. So I think you should set the days instead of saying, I'm just going to do it. And I know that's what you mean by that, but I
Well,
want
we're
to
going to
make
get
it
there.
clear. So,
We are on our way to exactly that, because
yeah.
I am all about planning your writing. It's not something you do just because the inspiration strikes, and especially not something you don't do because you don't feel like the muse is there. It's not like that. You are writing like it's your job. That means most days a week, you have it in your calendar and you don't skip it. It's in the calendar where the really important things go, where the doctor's appointments go, where the business meetings go, where the picking of the kids up from school goes. You put it in your calendar and you keep that commitment to yourself. That's one of the reasons why we were talking about the VIP yesterday being so useful, because you have a deadline. Having a deadline means that you are much more likely to keep your commitments to yourself, because you know you don't have the rest of your life to do it. You only have between now and the time the deadline happens. So set some sort of a meaningful deadline for yourself if you need that. But long story short, I want you just building the muscle of having it in your calendar, sitting down, like it or not, you're opening the laptop, you're opening the document you're working in, and you're actually making some progress, even if it's not a ton of progress. Now, this is one thing that's really, really important here. When you sit down to write, you are not rereading what you wrote yesterday. You're not going back over the chapter that you just finished, reading it and being like, oh, I love my chapter. Or, oh, I hate my chapter, I've got to rewrite the whole thing. You're writing new content. So that's what we talk about when we're talking about getting a draft. This is your book, or your book proposal is the same exact thing. Sit down, get a full draft written. Have accountability if you need it. Work with a book coach if you need it. Get a friend, grab a friend who's doing it too. But have the accountability to be keeping the agreements that you've made to yourself in your calendar each week. So that's the first half of planning your writing, is that you're planning your writing time and it's actually on your calendar. The other part of planning your writing is working from an outline. Now, I will say that I used to say every single book must have an outline. You must write the outline before you start. I even said, if you're not working from an outline, you're not writing a book. I still think that's the case most of the time. But I will say, as somebody who's currently working on my own memoir, I have found that sometimes just sitting down and writing the story that's alive that day, whether or not I know where it's going, actually is very helpful. And it's been helping me to find my voice for the memoir. So I will give you that. But I will say, if you are writing a book proposal for the contest, you need an outline. And you need it because a huge part of the book proposal is the outline. So the chapter summaries is one part of every book proposal, regardless of whether you're in this contest or you're submitting to agents. You have to have the chapter summaries. And in those summaries, you are listing everything you're going to say in that chapter, i.e., you're writing the outline. So it has to be written. Now, we talked about this a little bit. Actually, Nancy talked about it in her talk yesterday. You might find that you've already written a bunch and you didn't write from an outline. That is okay. I would highly recommend going back and retroactively outlining what you've got. That will help you know, do you have content that actually is a whole chapter, or is it just story after story after story with no kind of beginning, middle, and end? Do you have, if you've written a book that's a how-to guide, have you actually hit all of the different points that a reader really is going to need? Or did you just kind of like dump it on the page, which is fine. A first draft is supposed to be messy. That's totally fine. But if you haven't outlined it, you need to go back through what you've written and see what you've got. So that's the retroactive outlining phase. Okay. To this end, you have a homework assignment. A homework assignment. It's fun. It's the Post-it note exercise. Everybody loves the Post-it note exercise. I've got my Post-it notes right here. People love Post-it notes. I wish I could give you some. When we used to do this in person, we would hand out Post-it notes. But long story short, this is an easy, low barrier to entry way to put together a very quick and dirty outline for your book. I'm going to dare you to try this tonight or tomorrow if you're watching this on the replay. I'm going to dare you to try this, to grab your set of Post-it notes. If you don't even have Post-it notes, you could use, cards on the floor, whatever you'd like. And basically, you are going to just jot down general ideas for what you think the topics of your book is going to be. Now, if you are writing a book about a set process that you run people through over and over, you're going to know exactly what those chapters are. That was me with the book you were going to write. Obviously, I've been teaching this forever. I knew exactly what to say. If you're writing something like a novel or you're writing your memoir, you might not know exactly what order these go in. You might not even know what the main story is that you want to tell with your memoir. That's okay. This can be your place to play. You put them on the wall and you just look at them, and just having them outside of you on the wall has you see, oh, you know what? Actually, I think that is going to go underneath this chapter. It's not its own chapter. Or I thought that this wasn't even a chapter, but I'm realizing that there's a lot of content for it, which is where you sort of arrange it into the sequence that you would like it to be in on the wall. Again, this is just getting you started. Some of you already have an outline. Great, go for it. You don't need to do this. But if you haven't yet built an outline or you haven't even tried, this is a great way to make some progress this week. Such a big part of why we're teaching you in this boot camp. We want you to make progress right now, and this is a way to do it. Okay, so put those all on the wall, and then you repeat the same process with subtopics inside of each chapter. So if you know your first chapter is, just use tapping, right? Like, what is tapping? Okay, that's your first chapter. Then you're going to say, well, this is where it came from. This is what you do. This is the step-by-step process, et cetera, right? So you just are going to fill in the blanks underneath that chapter of what it is that you think you're probably going to put in that chapter. And I say what you think, because again, this is not meant to be a final situation. This is just getting you going, making a piece of progress that you have not made yet. Like maybe you want to tell the story of your dad's life. Okay, well, he was born here and this happened here, et cetera. You may not tell it in that order, but you're getting it all on the wall so you can start figuring out what order you want it to be in. Okay. So this is the last piece of advice around the successful authors. Just write every day of your life. Read intensely, then see what happens. Most of my friends who are put on that diet have very pleasant careers. Okay, that's Ray Bradbury, who's a very famous science fiction author. All right, so hopefully those ideas will give you just a little bit of an understanding of kind of generally speaking, how do I take the next step in the writing portion of the journey? Again, for many of you, this is the next step, is getting it on your calendar, sitting down and cracking open the laptop, actually putting words on a page, getting a quick and dirty outline down on the page. And so hopefully this has been helpful for you.
Yeah, and one thing I'll just say is that once you have the outline, you don't have to write it in order. You could write chapter 10 one day, chapter 5 the next day, chapter 2 the next day, but you'll know where it goes when you write it. So I think that takes the pressure off. I think it's really hard when you try to do the whole thing in order, at least as I'm hearing from so many different people. And then someone in the chat said, what about like if you have a short book, like a children's book from 3 to 8, you don't need an outline. You can just write the book. I mean, you can write it over and over. Like my wife writes children's books or has written like 15 different ones. And it like those books are the hardest books to write. Like literally it took her a year for every one pretty much. Like it was
Unbelievable.
I mean, it's so long. Like if you really put the effort in, like it seems like those are the fastest, but honestly, if you make good ones, and like hers was a New York Times bestseller, she sold like I think 1 million copies by now. But having seen her do it, it's so much work, like writing it and then getting the illustrations right. Like she didn't design it, but working with the illustrator to make sure they're perfect for what you want for the words. So even the short books can take a long time. I'm just giving you that as fair warning since there's so many of you thinking of children's books, as I've seen a bunch of people say it in the chat. And again, it goes back to everything Kelly just said. Even for those, if you want to write children's books, you better read the children's books to get an idea.
Definitely.
Because how my wife started writing children's books is Wayne Dyer had 8 kids, but when he wrote his own children's book, the thing was like 20,000 words, and it was meant for little kids. And I'm
Right.
like, Wayne, he goes, I really want to do a children's books. Like, I have 8 kids and all this. I go, look, Wayne, like, this isn't a children's book because at the time my kids were like 3 and 4 or 5 years old, and I said, I'm reading these things every night. And this isn't what they look like. And so I said, Christina, can you write one, because she was a good writer and all that. And so she ended up doing it. And she was in the middle of it too, obviously, with our kids and kids at school and all that sort of thing. But you should read a lot of them to get an idea of all the best-selling ones and why they sell. So
That's exactly right. A
it's
couple things I'm
very,
noticing in the chat that I just want to bring up. Number one, someone brought up that on my Instagram, I have a video that it's like a couple videos back about my favorite way to write every day, which is actually to talk into my phone. And that is actually how I make sure I am writing every single day. So I highly recommend you consider that if you're somebody who needs the kinesthetic experience of moving while you're getting words out. It can be very, very useful. And I have found it to be absolutely like really life-changing for me. That's one thing I wanted to say. And then again, with the children's books, I love what you're saying, Reed. It's so true that you need to perfect it like it's a poem. So think of it not
yeah.
like a big long book. Think of it as a poem that you're writing for children. And every single word needs to count when it comes to writing a poem. And that's the same with a children's book, really important there. And there were a couple other questions that came up that I wanted to answer that now have lost me, but they'll come back
Yeah,
to me.
someone asked like the name. So Christina's New York Times bestseller that she wrote with Wayne is called Incredible You. But you'll see him. She has Unstoppable Me. She didn't just do them with Wayne Dyer. She wrote it with Deepak Chopra, Christiane
Amazing.
Northrup. Like she wrote a whole bunch of them but they were at the time, this was a long time ago when she did it, and they were like some of the first ones on self-esteem and everything for kids. Now every celebrity writes a book like
Right.
this, but back in the day, they were very unique and different. So,
That's right. Exactly. Okay. Well, shall I move into talking a little bit about editors?
yes, ma'am.
Great. Fabulous. So further to Nick's point, do not get overwhelmed by what I'm about to talk to you about. You may be at a place right now where working with an editor as a book coach, as a line editor, as a content editor, as a ghostwriter might be right for you. And it may not be. That's okay. Sit back, let the information come in. Don't get overwhelmed. Okay. This is meant to be helpful, not to do any harm. Okay. So I am a book editor, as I've talked about, and it's obviously such a joy to get to have this career. I'm so grateful to have found my way into books and to be able to help people who have that creative drive to get their story out or have that service-oriented drive to help people or some combination of both. It's really wonderful. However, I have found that some of y'all have some myths about what it means to be an editor, and I want to dispel them. So first of all, big myth, editors primarily correct your grammar and punctuation. It is true that there are editors who do that, but there is so much more to editing, and my particular specialty in editing is not at all about grammar and punctuation. In fact, I often say I don't even have a copy of the Chicago Manual of Style, which is what most publishers use when they are looking at grammar and punctuation, because I'm a content editor and we are so much different than somebody who's wielding a little red pen. In fact, I oftentimes say, like, people do think that, you are like kind of a really particular, I mean, I'm detail oriented, but I'm not like mean. I don't have, my hair in a severe bun and like my little red pen, right? I'm actually doing more than that. I'm going to talk to you about that. Second myth is that editors can only help you once your manuscript is written. I mean, we just heard from Nick that he worked with a book coach. Most book coaches are editors. It's just they're putting on a slightly different hat. They're putting on the pre-manuscript written hat, right? They're just using a different set of their skills, but they are editors by trade in most cases. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that too. And then the third myth is that an editor and a proofreader are the same thing. I'll bet a lot of you think that that's true. What's interesting is a proofreader is like if you got the circle of editors and then you've got the Venn diagram, the proofreader is inside of the editor circle, right? They're a type of editor. They're a stage of editing. But a proofreader is really the person who reads the proofs of the book. So what are the proofs? The proofs are, once you have, see, I've got my let them theory sitting here. Once you have the book laid out in pages like this, the first time you ever see them laid out like this as an author, they're called your proof pages. And the proofreader is reading them after they've been set into type. They are not working on a manuscript. So just to give you an idea, like I'm not going to go into all the details about that, but just so you see that those two things are not the same. Right? So as an editor, I'm doing much more than that. And I'm going to talk to you about that now. Here are the true editing facts that I want you to know. Number one, you can hire an editor from the very beginning of your process. You can hire them as a coach. You can hire them to read a partial manuscript that you've written. You can hire them to work out your hook or to talk to you about your outline, help you build a structure that's going to work really well, etc. No matter where you are in the process. You don't have to, but you can. Number two, content. I don't know why that's doing that. Okay, content editing is the kind of editing that I work on. And that's the vision, the structure, that's big picture, global stuff. And then the clarity and the flow of the sentences, which is before we start talking about grammar, before we start talking about house style. We want the book to work. We want readers to be delighted by it. That's the content editor's job. That's me. Technical editing comes later. That's focused on grammar and formatting. Okay, so just to give you an idea, there's like a bigger scope. You don't have to memorize this, but just know there's a bigger scope to what an editor does. When should you hire one? Well, here's our little graphic. So in the first phase is what I call idea to outline. In that phase, you can hire someone to help you confirm your genre, to give you feedback on your hook, to help choose your ideal reader, to help you craft your outline, guidance on writing your book proposal. So this is all just giving you advice. So I think of myself as someone, I am this person, who needs to get all the information before I can really feel confident moving forward. And if I don't have an expert to ask, I'm not going to feel confident. I need help. I'm aware of how much help I need in all different areas of my life. And if you're that kind of person, you may want to work with an editor to get you started, so that you know you're headed in the right direction. Again, not required, but if you want to. In the writing and review stage, this is where I always think about this as like, I'm somebody who loves to, work out with a trainer and who will never work out without a trainer. Because if I don't have someone there with me, I am not going to be accountable to the working out. That's just me, right? So I have to figure out a way to work into my budget, having someone to, as Nick said earlier, tell me like you're supposed to do this at this time. Did you do it? Right. And the same goes for working with a book coach. So at this phase, you can have help planning the writing process, figuring out in your busy life, where are you going to fit it in? How much are you going to write? What days? Feedback on what you're writing so you can deliver them some content and just get what's working about it to give you that momentum to keep going. Troubleshooting and advice if you're stuck. I mean, people get stuck all the time, especially if you're writing a novel. Gosh, I don't know what the next piece of, the storyline needs to be, or this character is not working and I don't know what to do. An editor would love to dive into that with you and talk you through what they know from their experience and help guide you to your own thought process of, oh, now I get it, guiding you to that aha moment. Deadline accountability. You're actually going to deliver your book proposal to this contest, VIPs, right? Some of you know you're going to be able to do it on your own, no problem. Others of you, not so sure, right? Third phase is the phase most people think is where editing starts. So you can see editing starts well before this. This is the writing and polishing phase. So this is developmental edit, what I was saying about a big picture edit. I'm looking at the book hanging together. Do you have the beginning, middle, and end that the reader is going to need in order to go on the journey you want them to go on with you. If we're working on a book proposal, do you really understand what the publisher is looking for in each one of these sections? If not, I can tell you, this is what you're missing. This is what you need to do. I would take this out. So this is big picture stuff. We're looking at just not like, again, grammatical line by line. This is like, is the whole process, the book or the proposal working? There we go. Line edit. This is after you've revised based on someone's editorial letter, developmental, structural editing. Then they're going to go through and look at the line by line because they don't want to edit line by line if you're going to be revising on top of it, right? So they'll go do this next and they'll look at the clarity, the flow, how the sentences are moving and working. Usually, this is a phase where you are going to get a lot of red on your document. Nowadays, everybody does it on track changes. But you have to remember, you are the author, so you get to decide. You don't ever need to worry that an editor is going to change your voice because you are the one who has the final say, right? You want to find someone who's going to listen to you, obviously, but a professional editor absolutely knows how to work with authors. And we know that there's going to be things you're going to agree with and there's going to be things you're not going to agree with. I personally love it when I say, hey, this doesn't seem to be working. I'm suggesting this. And my author comes back and says, how about this? And I'm like, wow, that was even better. Good job. I love that. It's a conversation. Then you get into the technical editing. So copy editing is really at the polishing stage. That's where the copy editor is making sure that what you said was the name of the town that your protagonist lived in chapter 1 is the same name of the town they live in chapter 10. And also you spelled it the same, right? So they're looking to make sure there's consistency of the details across the entire journey of the book. They're making sure that the book is formatted correctly for the typesetter. So if someone comes through, an interior designer comes through and puts your manuscript into something that looks like this, you need to make sure that they know where the headlines go and that this is a bulleted list and this one is a numbered list. So that's one of the other things the copy editor does. So this is details. I often say that the copy edit is an invisible edit. You absolutely never know it's there unless it's not. Then you're reading the book and you're like, this is a hot mess. And it's like, yes, because the person didn't have a copy editor who made sure that everything worked together, right? And this is also the person who is going to be pulling out that Chicago Manual of Style and making 100% sure that your grammar is correct. If the house you're publishing with uses the Oxford comma, you will have the Oxford comma or vice versa, right? That's this person's job. I am not that person. I've been an editor my whole career. I've never been that person, not my job. Finally, it goes through the proofreading after it's been set into type. And that's where it's just crossing the I's, dotting the T's, making sure there's no double word in there or there's no word that got left out of the sentence. I often say that it is like the sock that gets pulled out of the dryer. You don't know where that sock went. How did that happen? We say that all the time. How did the book get so many errors introduced while it was being typeset? So we have to have proofreading. And a book that's published by a traditional publisher is going to have multiple rounds of proofreading. That's something that I think people don't really understand is just how much editing happens if you're working through a traditional publisher. Okay. So what's going to be your average investment on the editing? Again, if you're not ready for editing, you can close your ears right now. Do not panic. There's lots between here and there. And by the time you get there, you might be like, oh, this is totally worth the investment. So I'm just going to start by saying, first of all, like if you have sticker shock right now, you can let it go because again, this is just average. There are people who will do it for a lot less. There are people who will do it for a lot more. I'm also specifically talking because I needed to pick a word count of 50,000 word manuscript. That's one thing I will say is that in the book industry, we don't talk about pages. We talk about word count because we don't know what font size you used or what type of font you used or what type of margins you used. Your one page and my one page might be like 150 words different between them. So we talk always about word count. That is a little piece of industry advice that will take you far. Write that down, word count only. And this is 3 rounds of editing, which is a typical package that an editor will do with you. For an entry-level editor, this is somebody who has some training, but isn't necessarily, somebody who's got a bunch of New York Times bestsellers under their belt. I would expect $3,500 to $6,000 for these 3 rounds, all packaged together. So for a total 3 rounds. Now, if you're like, oh my God, that's so much money. What are you talking about? I want to say this is like 6 months of work. Okay. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. They're going to read your entire book 3 times. That's a lot. right? So again, you can find people who will do it for less. You're very likely to get somebody who's not going to have the skill set that somebody who's been trained in the editorial world has. Maybe you find somebody great. That's fabulous. I'll tell you a little bit about how to find an editor in just a second. If you are looking for an editor who has real experience, you're going to be looking more in the $7,500 to $10,000 range for these 3 rounds of editing. Okay. But again, that's somebody who's got books under their belt, who's been worked at publishers in the past, et cetera. Like that's, you're going to be, yeah, looking at that or higher. I've heard astronomical things, I have to say. But just to keep in mind, right? The entry-level editor might be just right for you. Someone who's even less than that might be right for you. Or you might say, you know what? I am at the point with this book and what I'm looking for. I want someone who's got industry experience. And that's going to be more the 7,500 to 10,000. Again, 3 rounds of editing. They're reading your book 3 times all the way through and giving you a lot of advice and talking to you and being your cheerleader and sometimes your therapist. So just know that that's why we're talking these prices. Okay. What about for a book proposal? Much smaller word count, entry level editor, 8,000 or 800 to 3,000, I would say, somewhere in that range. Woo! Experienced editor, more like 2,000 to 6,000. Okay. And they're going to be giving you so much industry advice. You got to remember, especially if you're working with an experienced editor, these people have information that is going to be gold to you that you could not get another way because they've been in the industry and they're looking at your exact proposal. So again, yes, it's not for everyone. That's okay. And can you find people for less? You definitely can. Again, I'm going to walk you through that in just a second. But I wanted you to understand like an average investment for 3 rounds of editing, 3 times through. Okay. All right. Moving on to how do you find an experienced editor? Well, publishersmarketplace.com is definitely the industry standard website. It is the sort of website for people who are in the book industry here in the US and probably in the UK as well, although I think they also have their own website over there. It's very useful. It does cost $25 a month to be a part of it, but you could go on there, spend $25, get a whole list of editors who work in your genre, who you know for sure have industry experience. So you know you're getting people who really understand because no one knows about this website if you're not in the industry. Okay, so that's one option. Another is to Google, right? You can Google book editors in your area. This is if you want to be working with somebody in person. Most editors that I know don't work in person anymore, but maybe you want that and you could find someone who's in your town. Upwork.com. There's several different, freelancer sites. Upwork is a great one. You can go there and sort of bid and say, hey, I've got roughly this amount of money to spend. And people will actually be able to tell you, oh, they'll volunteer. I could do that. Okay, for that price. Now, with all of these people, you need to make sure that you are getting their references. Because I will say, as somebody who is the owner of an editorial company, we get a lot of people who come to us who say they had a really bad experience with an editor, and even more heartbreaking, that they spent a ton of money and they had a really bad experience with the editor. I hate that. That is not good. You need to make sure you're talking, and I mean pick up the phone and call those references and ask them what it was like to work with this editor. Okay. Unless you have a very reputable referral. So that could be a friend of yours who's worked with this person who that they are, they had a great experience. They were just talking about how wonderful it was. Fabulous. Maybe you don't need to call all their references in that case. Or if you get referred by a company that guarantees you're going to be happy, like us. So we vet every editor that we work with so deeply. And we work with people who are book editors for a living, which is something that I also think you might want to hold out for. A lot of times people are like, well, my best friend's daughter just graduated with an English degree. And it's like, okay, I mean, maybe that not for nothing. Look, I was looking at manuscripts the day I walked out of college, essentially. But was I as good then as I am now? No, I had no idea what I was doing back then. And so you're probably going to end up with someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Maybe they can make it better. That's great. But will they be able to get it to the standard you want it? That's up to you. You're going to have to decide. My recommendation is to try to work with someone who edits books for a living, because you'll have somebody who really knows what they're talking about and who's worth the investment that you're making. Do you want help finding the right editor? Of course. I hope you'll come and visit the KN Literary Expert booth. We are teaching our KN Literary editorial method in there, so you really understand the bigger picture of what we do and what we bring to the table. And also you'll learn a lot about editors in general. So I invite you to come and join us and check it out. Okay, that is all. We are done with our editing conversation.
And then as we're winding down here for the general group, I just want to remind everybody that I mean, we've given you a lot of information over the first 2 days. Hopefully, you're all learning something, but we know that's tons of information. The big thing about our Writers Boot Camp is we're trying to give you everything we can in the 8 hours or 12 hours that we're with you. So we just want you to know that because I see lots of people going, oh my God, there's so much stuff. I don't know what to do and all that. But remember, for all of you in the general, right now before you leave, that you can go back and watch it over. Those of you watching the replay, you have 24 hours to go through it and all that. And for all of you in VIP, you have 30 days. So you can go back, listen to it, watch it, get information. Like we're just trying to give you a bunch of information so you have a lot of information that will save you money, help you get the book done, help you get the book done right, know what to do or not do, all those sort of things for these first couple days. And we're going to keep going. We have 2 more days of it coming your
Yes.
direction. We hope you guys all come. We're going to have a whole different topics tomorrow. So be sure that you come and see those so we can share that with you. And remember that you can go to the expert booths and we have Nancy's there still. You saw her talk yesterday. Go visit Nancy. You can go to talk to Balboa Press. They can tell you all about helping you get your book published and out there, and how they get the books on Amazon and on Ingram and edit and book covers and all that. And then you can go to KN Literary as well, and they can help you also. So you have two different resources, totally different
Yeah, different
ways of
vibes.
going
Yeah,
about it, and
yeah.
things like that. And then also the web expert Charlie. For all of you in the general, you can go see him there. And if you have any interests or thoughts or topics and questions about websites, he's there to help you. And that's it for today. So we'll see all of you in the YouTube in the general tomorrow. And again, if you have any friends that want to come and see it, invite them, show them. We're only halfway
Only
through. So we
halfway
got a
through,
whole bunch
exactly.
more to go.
VIPs, don't leave. Stay here.
Yeah,
We've got a whole other
yes.
hour for you guys, just a
We got a
reminder.
whole nother hour for you, so don't leave VIPs.
Yes.
All right, so here we are, all of you
Great.
VIPs.
Yay,
And
VIPs.
so we're going to do questions again in a little bit. And today we're going to do all different questions. We're not doing hooks
Yeah.
and titles.